Xenolalia. Xenolalia, also known as xenoglossy, is the ability to speak or write in a language that the individual has not learned through natural means. It is a purported paranormal phenomenon where someone can speak a foreign language they have never been exposed to. The term originates from the Greek words xenos, foreigner, and lalia, speaking, or glossa, tongue language. Key aspects of xenolalia: unlearned language. The core characteristic is the ability to use a language without prior study or exposure. Natural acquisition. It's distinct from learning a language through formal study, immersion, or other typical methods. Potential parapsychological phenomenon. Xenolalia is often discussed in the context of parapsychology and reincarnation research. Distinction from glossolalia. Xenolalia is different from glossolalia, which refers to speaking in an unknown, non-human tongue, often associated with religious experiences. Biblical examples. Some believe certain biblical accounts, like the Pentecost story, involve xenolalia, where apostles spoke in languages they had not previously known. Glossolalia. Glossolalia, a phenomenon sometimes referred to as ecstatic utterances, is the uttering of unintelligible, language-like sounds while in a state of ecstasy. Glossolalia is sometimes confused with xenoglossia, which is the biblical gift of tongues. However, whereas glossolalia is babbling in a non-existent language, xenoglossia is the ability to speak fluently a language the speaker has never learned. Additionally, whereas xenoglossia is not an innate or natural ability, studies have shown that glossolalia is a learned behavior. Research conducted by the Lutheran Medical Center demonstrates that glossolalia is readily learned by following simple instructions. Correspondingly, it was found that students could exhibit speaking in tongues in the absence of any indications of trance like stupor or behaviors. Another test conducted with 60 students showed that after listening to a 1-minute sample of glossolalia, 20% were able to imitate it precisely. After some training, 70% succeeded. In just about every part of the world, glossolalia can be observed. Pagan religions all over the world are obsessed with tongues. These include the shamans in the Sudan, the Shango cult of the west coast of Africa, the Zor cult of Ethiopia, the Voodoo cult in Haiti, and the Aborigines of South America and Australia. Murmuring or speaking gibberish that is construed to be deep mystical insight by holy men is an ancient practice. There are basically two aspects to glossolalia. First is talking or murmuring in language-like sounds. Practically everyone is able to do this. Even children, before they ever learn to speak, can mimic real language, though unintelligibly. There is nothing extraordinary about this. The other aspect of glossolalia is ecstasy, or the demonstration of trance-like elation. There is nothing unusual about this either, although it is more difficult to do intentionally than to merely utter language-like sounds. There are some Christians, especially within the Pentecostal movement, who believe there is a supernatural explanation for glossolalia, similar to that described in the New Testament. They believe that the chief purpose of the gift of speaking in tongues is to manifest the Holy Spirit being poured out upon them, just as on the day of Pentecost, Acts 2, which was prophesied by Joel, Acts 217. Among those Christian churches who do espouse the practice of glossolalia to one degree or another, there is no uniform agreement as to its workings. For example, some are adamant that it is indeed a gift of the Holy Spirit, while others minimize its importance, saying Paul taught that the gift of speaking in tongues wasn't nearly as important as the other gifts of the Holy Spirit. See 1 Corinthians 13. Also, there are those wishing to avoid dividing the church on such issues by not speaking of it at all or dismissing it as a simple psychological experience. Then there are those who regard glossolalia as a deception of Satan himself. Exotic languages are heard and understood throughout the world, but existing languages are not heard or understood when spoken as ecstatic utterances or tongues. What we do here is a profusion of hype, claims, confusion and noise. We simply cannot declare, as at the time of the first church, that each of us hears understands them in his own native language, Acts 28 NIV. Simply put, the practice of glossolalia is not the biblical gift of tongues. Paul made it clear that the chief purpose of the gift of speaking in tongues was to be a sign for those who did not believe and to spread the good news, the gospel of Christ, 1 Corinthians 1419:22. 3.